Thank you very much. My name is Chris Cairns. I'm the Executive Chairman of Stavely Minerals. Our project is a new discovery in Western Victoria in Australia. It's a magma-style Lode copper-gold deposit, but we believe, having made a discovery, we're actually the best emerging discovery story on the Australian Stock Exchange, and I'll describe why. Normal disclaimer. If you're interested in looking at this presentation, it will be on our website and on the ASX. So we did have a first mover position in the Stavely belt. It was identified by Geoscience Australia as having porphyry potential. So we picked up about 1,500 square kilometres of tenure. I find it interesting that many of the other presenters talk in hectares, but we're in kilometres. That's Australia for you. We made a discovery in September 2019 on what we call the Cayley Lode. We named it after one of the government geologists who had highlighted the potential. We've recently brought out a mineral resource after drilling it out for in excess of 2 years, almost 10 million tonnes at 1.25% copper and quarter gram gold, a little bit of silver from surface. So no big pre-strip or anything like that. There is a chalcocite blanket on top of it, and our total resources, including a little VMS that we own, about 30 million tonnes at 0.75% copper and 0.1 gold. But 210,000 tonnes of copper and 100,000 ounces of gold, 3.2 million ounces of silver. So it's a significant inventory. And as I mentioned, it's a Magma Arizona or Butte, Montana style of Lode mineralization, copper gold rich. Never a style not seen before in Australia. But we do have in this context, multiple discovery opportunities, and this could become a new copper province in Australia, similar to the Lachlan Fold Belt hosting Cadia and North Park's porphyry mines. And we have a vector to the porphyry at depth. As I say, 1,500 square kilometres of ground. It's a big ground position. We've got the best part of the belt, and we're just systematically working through it. Initially, we're looking for, as I say, Acadia-style porphyry. Focused at Thursday's Gossan, the porphyry is in the beige hatch there, and the chalcocite blanket is in red. It did strike us that the chalcocite blanket wasn't entirely developed over the porphyry. Why was that so? We now know that those dashed lines, the main controlling structures, host this Lode-style mineralization. In fact, the chalcocite blanket was developed on that structurally controlled mineralization. We do have a little VMS. It's relatively small, million tonnes, but at 2.2% copper and almost half a gram gold, it's quite sweet and it's got a lot of growth potential. So the discovery hole, we've got this piece of core from this hole at the booth. Please visit us at booth 51. 32 metres at almost 6% copper and a gram gold from 62 metres drill depth, including 2 metres at 40% copper. And really it's in the pictures you can see the purple bornite and the silvery chalcocite, very high tenor copper sulfides that give us those very high grades. The resources, I'll flick through this quite quickly. Almost 10 million tonnes, as I mentioned, 1.25% copper and quarter gram gold. In an optimized open pit that's 1,500 metres long, 700 metres wide and goes to 300 metres depth, optimized at a US $6 a pound, which you just use to constrain your resource. In the open pit, about 7.5 million tonnes there at quite good grade. As I say, it's from surface, but a high proportion in the indicated high confidence category of resources. The chalcocite blanket of an original 28 million tonnes that was unconstrained, now constrained within an open pit, something in the order of about 18 million tonnes at about 0.41% copper. Again, high confidence. Total in-pit resources, 80% of them in the indicated category, so 155,000 tonnes of copper and 75,000 ounces of gold, so quite substantial metal inventory. Underground, at a 1% copper lower cutoff, another 1.7 million tonnes at 1.8% copper and 0.2 grams gold. We believe this is where the major growth opportunity lies. And in fact, the nature of the mineralization is changing. I'll talk about that shortly. So here we go. So just to exemplify a typical hit at shallow depths, Hole 87 got 87 meters at almost 1.75% copper, half a gram gold. But typical of these large intercepts, we do have subintervals that are very high grade. In this case, the basal contact with the ultramafic, shown in the graphic as purple. In this case, 9 meters at 4.1% copper and almost 2 grams gold, whilst further up in the sequence, in that intercept, 24 meters at 4.2% copper and 1.25 grams gold. The point I'm making in this slide is really that whilst the bigger interval is very amenable to open pit mining, it's those higher grade sub-intervals that are going to be attractive for underground. This is the long section. The discovery hole is the highest most in the middle magenta circle. Those magenta circles are 100 copper percent meters, if you will, equivalent to more than 50 meters at 2% copper, for example. So the plunge of the mineralization is quite shallow to the southeast. That deepest magenta circle is hole 173. I'll talk about that shortly. And the deepest hole in the whole project, 182, is highlighted there and remains open, down plunge and down dip. So this is 173. Great hit, 43 meters at 2.6% copper and almost half a gram gold with, as I say, very consistent high-grade subintervals. But the character of the mineralization is changing here to a jigsaw breccia, more of a porphyry style with quartz, chalcopyrite, and hematite. It's a lot hotter than the stuff that we see higher up, and so it's evolving. Likewise, the deepest hole in the entire project, 10.4 meters at 4.3% copper and 3 grams gold, with a pretty impressive 5 meters at 6.75% copper and 6.5 grams gold. The significance of this is not just that it's sweet grade, but also that the gold is coming up, is in parity on a gram per ton basis with the copper percent. So it's 6.5 and 6.5. This is really important because you would actually expect to see this as the nature of the mineralization changes from what we call high sulfidation into intermediate sulfidation. That significance of that change is the next stop is the porphyry. So that's what we're looking at, this change in character of the mineralization from high sulfidation to intermediate sulfidation as we travel down that plunge, and that we expect that there will be a porphyry that is driving this whole system and is not that far away. So we plan very shortly in January to start a panel of holes. It's not resource drilling because they're going to be 150 meters spaced. It's discovery drilling looking for this porphyry. And the analogy that we use is magma Arizona. Underneath that magma vein system is the resolution porphyry owned by Rio Tinto and BHP. It's 2 billion tons at 2.5% copper. That's what we're looking for. So where to from here? We've got a number of hits that I've described on 3 different structures. The deepest one on the Cayley Lode, if you will, is the second set of numbers up the top there, 173 and 182, really sweet stuff. We expect the porphyry to be underneath that, but there are other high sulfidation character hits off to the left there on 2 other structures. So we see it as a development with an initial open pit and then followed by phase 2 underground. That's our option 1. So the second option 2 is we go straight underground. And in a jurisdiction like Victoria, in terms of permitting small footprint, you don't have to permit great big open pit or waste dumps, etc. Really, option 2 does look like, permitting-wise, the least risky option. Just describing the Carroll's VMS, it's 800 meters along strike, only 250 meters drilled to depth, and so there's a lot of potential further at depth. The regional exploration, 1,500 square kilometers of tenure. All of those existing prospects that you see are within a little window of 20 kilometers of exposure. The rest of the geology there is covered by younger volcanics and cover, and so there's quite a large number of prospects in the window of exposure, but almost none elsewhere. And so we've made a discovery up in the Tura West area, up on the top left, if you will. We've discovered a porphyry under 30 meters of cover there. So unfortunately, it's not going to be good enough. It's only got a single phase of mineralization. In a porphyry, you need 3 or 4 phases of overprinting mineralization to make it worthwhile. But the implication is that we are demonstrating capacity to see through cover. And really the strength there is that we flew a gravity gradiometer survey that picks up these targets very nicely. And so 19 targets to get through. We've got some priority targets. We had an announcement out a couple of weeks ago of our top hits, if you will, and we'll go after them in the upcoming field season. In and around the Cayley Lode, it's shown there in the red line, the solid line. But on this image, we're showing the air photo with soil auger geochemistry in copper. And clearly there are some very large copper anomalies not yet explained. There has been restricted access for the past 10 or more years. We've last year been able to get onto the ground with this farmer, and we look forward to the coming field season and doing some damage with those really large anomalies. The junction one down to the south has a hit of 35 meters at 3.4% copper from about 24 meters. So it's definitely a top target. We do have a rare earths prospect. Thank you. Just winding up. It's very early days. Soil sample will follow it up. So, you know, it's the copper thematic about a low carbon economy, but there aren't many quality assets in first world jurisdictions, and we've got something special in that respect. Not too much about the company other than the share price has been beaten down, a fairly modest market cap of 57 million with about $7 million worth of cash, an ambitious program in exploration coming up, so lots of news flow, and we're very much looking forward to it. So thank you very much for your attention.